Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice Saturday morning over here from a very windy, actually, Helsinki, Finland. A lot of very important things to be speaking about today to set us up for the next week to come. As always, over a weekend, today being Saturday and of course tomorrow being Sunday. I'm not like too fussed about short-term time frame price action, although we will follow up there yet again as we did get that further extension in the $45,000 level and a little bit of a short-term pullback from there and kind of where that potentially leads us up in the next 48 hours or so. But realistically, the big focus today is on the next week to come and how that sets up the next month to come actually as well, as we follow up on one of the major signals that we've been kind of looking at here for the past month and a half to 2 months now actually. Anyways, with that said, we are going to swing back into the Krown trading application a little bit later within this analysis as it will fit in there. I want to give a big focus on the global open interest right here, getting above actually 14 billion if you go to it on an hourly data feed as of right now. So that does suggest that we are kind of, loading a lot of leverage positions onto the board, which means that the unwind from this is likely going to be rather volatile, let's say. But for right now, let's focus on the more hard stuff as it would be. So I want to follow up on perhaps the most important thing happening the soonest, and then we'll talk about the most important thing that happened yesterday. So first and foremost, the most important thing that's happening the soonest is the 5-day chart right here. The big chart that we've been kind of working off of for the past few months, or the past couple months realistically, is going to have a chance to, or it's definitely going to close tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to have a chance to get its first positive slope on the 5-day BBWP, which is also going to be getting above the moving average here as well. Why is that important? Why is that valuable? Well, as you can see over the past couple years, and we can go much further than this in the annals of history of Bitcoin, although this is just most relevant, we have seen that anytime that we have seen the BBWP get its first sort of upward slope, and especially above that moving average as well, which also gets a positive slope simultaneously, well, those have been the beginnings of some pretty impressive moves as we've measured out right here, which I've shown a million goddamn times, so I don't want to bore you too much with this. But basically, volatility being a direction neutral sort of indicator, we do see, a couple instances of downside price action and a couple instances of upside price action. What is consistent amongst all of these is that the price moving from that expansion of volatility, basically that upward slope of it, typically amounts to about 45%, as you can kind of see them measured out right here, 48, 42, 47-ish, 42 again right here. And then typically happens over the course of about 40 days on average as well. As you can see, this one being 45, 35, 35, and 50 as well. So that is going to have a chance to confirm for the first time today upon daily and 5-day closure. Again, getting its first positive slope here and getting above the moving average simultaneously. And in this case, we can now go to our stochastic momentum oscillator right here to get a bit of a bias on direction. So if you recall the past 4 iterations that we just went over, we have seen we did see the first iteration down, the next 2 up, the next one down after that. Okay, put those ones in your mind's eye. They correlate with all these green vertical bars right here yet again. You can see that on this first one, obviously was headed to the downside and just losing the bullish controls on at the same time. And that was your major move to the downside from about $60,000 to a $30,000 low. Then of course we get this next one to the upside, but it's like the opposite of that. It's not only angled up, but it's getting out of the bearish control zone. And that was your big move. That was your big bear trap from July of last year. And then of course we have another one over here where it freshly crosses the upside alongside that volatility expansion, also within the context of the bullish control zone. Very important. And then most recently in December, we did see it head down and also lose the bullish control zone, another 40-ish% move to the downside. Anyways, the reason why I'm calling this out right now is that as of right now, the 5-day stochastic momentum is not just upside angled, it's fucking vertical is what it is. And it will be remaining vertical as long as, and we can forecast this thanks to Mr. KVDB's advanced stochastic right here, as long as Bitcoin's closing above 39,300. So that would, nothing's impossible, right? It's all about probabilities, but a $5,000 or so move down on a Saturday, a little bit less likely. Has it happened in the past? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I believe we saw it in December, but rather rare, we might say. So until that happens, I do still put the probabilities in favor of the Bulaw's upwards continuation, likely in the next month to come. Again, this does typically take some time. And obviously this is, also working its way well out of the bearish control zone now here too. In fact, a lot closer to the bullish control zone. So I do quite like that. Anyways, if we were to just blindly add or subtract 45%, let's say, from our current levels, of which that has been historically very much relevant to the upside and the downside. Well, the upside trajectory target of that would be around $56,000. The downside would be about $23,000. Actually, might have to move that up from our current level here because that was applied a little bit ago. Anyways, either which way, very, 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 very important, because that would give us not only a, about a target to be looking at, but also a time frame as well. So $56,000 in about 40 days, if this does get resolved to the upside. Of course, this 5-day stochastic momentum oscillator right here gives the probabilities in favor of the upside. As you can see, for the past 4 iterations, it's been perfect. Again, we can go further back than that. Same thing. I'll just briefly show you right here. These are both to the upside. Oh, well, hold on. Oh, what do you know? Up and up again. Very, very nice. Anyways, as always, though, I like to operate off of closures, and in this case, price action matters most, as always. But before we get into what actually confirms, at least in my view, that move becomes rather likely in the next, let's say, 40 days, like month and a half or so, I want to talk about what is the most important thing that actually happened yesterday that is really, 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 really incredible, actually, that I don't really see too many people talking about. Most because I don't really see people talking about CME chart. Just in general, CME chart is just better. The signals off of CME chart work better, just point blank period. Just from my own back testing and whatnot. Feel free to show me any other information if that's not true from your own studies. But from my own studies, this one typically gets things more right than wrong compared to spot price action charts. Anyways, in this case, we already had the weekly closure for CME, obviously, yesterday on Friday. And what do you know? Bitcoin closed, CME closed above the yellow 21 exponential average and also the 55, but most importantly, the 21 right here for the first time since when? For the first time since, this Dumpola party really started, which was about a couple months ago. Actually, in fact, not a couple months ago, late November was the last time it was actually above it on a closing basis. And you can see if I take everything else off, which let me just do this really, really quick here. You can see that just kind of blindly playing this over the course of history has been generally good. Now, should I say this? Should I not say this? All right, I've been seeing a very interesting sort of, all right, should I say it? Should I go on this goddamn rant right now? Okay, I've been seeing this very interesting moving average period that a lot of people have been bringing up recently, the 140 daily period moving average. Guess what that is? It's a fucking 20 on a weekly. For the love of fucking God, like, there's always gonna be a time frame. There's always gonna be a fucking period. There's always gonna be some sort of an indicator that tells you exactly what you want to see. And for the love of fucking God, you don't need to go out of your way to do this. Again, teach their own, obviously. I'm just ranting because, it's a Saturday, I'm bored, and I probably shouldn't be to begin with. But I do think it's that it's rather funny. It's like, oh, I could use a daily 140 or a weekly 20. It's like, okay, well, I mean, look, it doesn't really matter which one that you use, but it just seems for uniformity's sake better on the weekly. And, just kind of blindly playing it here. Like, obviously, it's been pretty damn good. Doesn't get things perfectly, as does nothing, but generally when you're below it and has a downward slope, Bitcoin price action's down. When Bitcoin's above it and it has a positive slope, Bitcoin's up, or generally, massively up in this case. If we go to a more long running chart, yeah, it still works the same thing over here as well. Namely the prior 10 years of Bitcoin history right here, which weren't included on that prior chart. You can see just, blindly looking at it, that generally above plus positive slope, two very important factors. That is your bull markets and vice versa for the downside. Anyways, getting above it already on CME for yesterday's Friday closure very likely implies that spot price action will do the same thing tomorrow night on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Obviously, we want to see that confirm as well, but typically wherever CME closes is where spot will probably end up around anyways. So not only did it get above there, but also closing above that critical $44,500 region as well. So I am looking for continuation very likely in the next couple weeks to come. Of course, there's going to be pullbacks along the way. No shit. Where would potential pullback targets be in the short term if we were going to play them out sooner rather than later? And this is not a statement that they're definitely going to happen sooner rather than later. I don't have a strong opinion on this. If I do, we're going to go into the short-term timeframes, which I don't have a strong opinion, especially over the weekends as of right now. But if I were going to be looking at those regions, where would they be? Very obvious one between about 41.5 and 42,500 or so. And all that I'm doing that off of is the 382 and the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement right here from this current structure that's going on. Now, here on CME, we can see a couple different things. And remember, the potential targets to the upside that we forecasted over here And again, there's going to be stops along the way. Like there was a good discussion in the Discord earlier with, a new guy. He's excited. He's just expressing his opinions like, Krown, if Bitcoin goes above 45, will it then go to 48 and 50,000? It's like, is it possible? It's like, well, anything's fucking possible, of course. I mean, it's like Bitcoin could go to $0. That is possible. No shit. But is it probable? Well, the probabilities in that case would align with, general pullbacks along the way, probably more around, 48. I do put a little bit of emphasis on that region, and then about $51.5 to $52,000 as well. But as always, that's a function of the time frame that you're looking at in the formation that you're playing. In this case, if you're going with that assumption, well, you're probably looking at this as some variation of an ascending triangle, a bullish reaccumulation formation, which does have a technical target. And that technical target is, guess where? At around $56,000. Also in line, good confluence right here with this massive meltdown that you saw in early December or beginning in early December. And if we take it even one step further, of course, again, remembering that over here, that was kind of like the forecasted target. We can also see that if we were to take a Fibonacci retracement from the high to the low, so this is technically a bearish retracement, by the way, but people get so fucking up your Angus about which way that you pull these. Honestly, unless if you're making an interpretation of which one you're on, it actually doesn't matter all that much, to be quite frank. But in this case, this would be the 618 Fibonacci retracement on a bearish retracement, and that typically is where you actually do see your bull traps. So at minimum, I'd be looking for humongous pullbacks from here, in those terms, probably back down to like the mid 40s or upper 40s, I would imagine. If Bitcoin even gets there to begin with. And then I'd also have a little bit of a keen eye right here at the 0.5, and then you got the 382. Hold on, let me just adjust right here. Is actually a little bit closer to that $48,000 number that I just gave out. This one obviously a little bit less important, to be quite frank again. So if you do see Bitcoin really reject hard and it even gets to $56,000, that would be a good indication that we're probably going to see not just major downs, but that could be the actual bull trap. Until then, I don't really have any reason to be concerned about Bitcoin, especially as long as we're above $41,000 on a daily closing basis. And if you're playing this formation still, the formation is still available to you as long as Bitcoin is putting in these higher lows alongside this upward slope trend line, which is probably going to come around, at current price action about 40,000 and, rising over time. So, basically, as long as Bitcoin's above 40, I do favor the upside continuation here. Obviously, based off of this chart over here, I do favor the upside continuation as well. And so what would essentially validate the next move? So to kind of quote that person, it's like, above 45,000 good. It's like, no, there needs to be a documentable and verifiable validation and also invalidation. So invalidation, if you're playing this, is obviously what I just spoke about right there. Validation for the actual formation would be above, well, the topside resolution of this one, which on CME is actually a little bit higher than spot, be about 45 on a daily versus about almost 46 on a 4 hour. If you're on spot, probably 44,500 on a daily is okay. If you want to be a little more conservative, $45,000 on a dailies looks obviously even better. And on a 4 hour, I think it's like 45.7 or so. We'll get to that soon enough. And it's not like things are just going to immediately go up here. Remember, historically speaking, typically takes about a month and a half, from around today, actually. So probably going to still be some more slow and boring times. Anyways, in that case, let's go over, should we go over to the lower term time frame now? We're 13 minutes into this bitch. Yeah, sure. Why not, man? Why not? All right, so let's go over here. We've been working off of this chart. And I'm actually going to raise the roof on this one, being that it is a weekend. I like to be more concerned of my own self, especially when looking at potential breakouts, because I don't like breakouts to begin with, or especially trading them. But in this case right here, it doesn't mean that they can't be good. Again, teach their own, obviously. But in this case, I wouldn't declare a breakout until Bitcoin's closing 4 hour dildos like above the highest wick that we've seen here, which is basically 46. Yeah, it's basically 45 and like 700, it looks like. Anyways, until then, it actually looks like Bitcoin's going to give another try up here. I'm not really getting any major indications that we're going to see a big pullback just yet. If we go over to our momentum oscillators from a stochastic perspective, we can come up with a bit of a pivot point here. It's going to notice a lot of the numbers come in at the same region, but the 12-hour is pivoted to the upside as long as Bitcoin's closing above 44,200. Okay, not too far away from current price action, but keep that number in mind. 6-hour turns up above 44,850. 4-hour is going to turn up above 44.7, which Bitcoin's, generally close to right now. 3-hour is going to turn up above 44.7 as well. Okay, numbers coming up multiple times here. Bi-hourly is already popping up above 44.4, which Bitcoin's obviously above by about $200 as of this current moment. And hourly's headed up with volatility very, very low. So looking for expansion there above 44.3 or so. So I would go as far as saying that, I'm not really getting like majorly good indication here. If I'm looking for short-term corrections, I'm looking somewhere right around $44,000. I don't declare a short-term breakdown until Bitcoin closes an hourly delta below about 43.6. At that point, yes, I do start to target moves down towards 42 and between about 41.5 and 42.2. For corrections. Anyways, and until then, we did get we also got the cross between the 21 and 55, the silver cross that we spoke about yesterday. Again, nothing's perfect, obviously, on the daily, but it's better than nothing. And corrections down to the 9 are certainly fair game if Bitcoin wants to do that. But for right now, it looks like Bitcoin probably gives at least one more try to the upside. If I'll say this offhand here again, because I know that people tuning into this content during this segment of the market cycle when things are generally slow, probably, happen to give a fuck and can understand the nuances of these sorts of things. It actually looks like Bitcoin does want to give another go here and probably does try this over the weekend just for what it looks like right now. I would only invalidate that on like a short time frame if Bitcoin came down below 44, then probably ranges first and comes down early next week and then gives another try probably later next week once we get the new monthly open. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at right now. Again, I don't really consider any major downside until Bitcoin's below about 38 and a half, I think it was, or 39, somewhere around there. For right now, I do think that Boulahs have the balls in their court, and then the next 5-day closure, assuming that this does keep up right here, which it likely does, but would like to see this one confirmed. We'll really start to gear those probabilities even greater in the favor of the Boulahs continuation. And like I said, areas of interest to the upside from here, it's going to be about assuming that you get the breakout, looking first somewhere around like 47.5 to 48, small area, and then big ones at around 51 to 52. Other than that, is there anything that I'm missing on is there anything that's like super obvious right here? Momentum oscillators are pretty cooked, but they could easily have one more go here. Yeah, if Bitcoin wants to have a short-term correction, like low for like 43.5 is fair game. I don't even call like a short-term breakdown until Bitcoin's closing hourlies below about there. Also over here on the global open interest, keep in mind that we are actually seeing higher levels of open interest comparable to what we saw in December when Bitcoin was around $52,000 right here. Way back around there. So there's a lot of leverage positions on the board right now. Obviously, some of these are shorts, some of these are longs. I imagine that you're going to see a lot of shorts covering above $45,000, on a higher term time frame closure. Bitcoin does start to head back down. I don't think that things get like too scary until you're below about 40 to 41 or so. Below those regions, that's where I look for a humongous unwind, and you're going to see probably the lower projection of this chart play out over time rather than the upwards one. Until then, I do think that it's a little bit interesting that the fear and greed index is still, somewhat on the fearful side, considering that Bitcoin's had basically a more than $10,000 move off the $33,000 lows. Other than that, I think that's a good place to kind of leave it off. I want to wish you all take care and see you soon.